program to bring you an urgent announcement. Frankenstein's monster is on the loose again. Citizens are urged to stay indoors and away from wells, alleys, and enclosed spaces where the lumbering minutes might strike. The local authorities further urge citizens to refrain from forming mobs, wielding torches and pitchforks, or marching on Castle Frankenstein. We now return to your regular programming, which is already in progress.
Greetings and happy Halloween. Welcome to the History Center of Olmsted County's Creepy Doll Cocktail Party, here to rescue Halloween from COVID-19. What an October it's been. Have you been following our beautifully creepy dolls who have been pleading and carrying on for your vote? You have voted, haven't you? Well, tonight we'll announce which creepy doll you, the voters, have chosen. We are showcasing all the frightening contestants of our Creepy Doll Costume Pageant and will reveal the winner. I have a feeling it's going to be really scary. Folks, we want to say a thank you to our friends at Frankenstein's Restaurant in Byron, Minnesota. They have provided us with all the food that we have tonight. Thank you, Frankenstein's Restaurant. Hey, we have a great show for you tonight. You're going to meet each of the creepy dolls, learn a little bit about their history, and their favorite cocktail. Our very own History Center curator will be mixing up the terrifying drinks. Say, want to tell everyone which drink or doll you love or loathe? Just drop us a chat. Listen, we know you're going to have fun tonight, but you may learn a thing or two about creepy dolls. Our collections manager will share a bit of the dark history of the dolls and how best to care for them. You better take care of your creepy doll. But first, let's hear from tonight's band, a diabolical duo, John Penny and Steve Hobart. Take it away, fellas.
It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. He did the monster mash. From my laboratory in the castle east to the bedroom where the vampires feast. The ghouls all came from their humble abodes to get a jolt from my electrodes. They did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. They did the monster mash. The zombies were having so much fun. The party had just begun. The guests included Wolfman, Dracula, and his son. The scene was rocking. All were digging the sounds. Chains backed by his baying hounds. The coffin bangers were about to arrive with the vocal group, the Crypt Kicker 5. They played the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. They played the monster mash. seems he was troubled about just one thing. He opened the lid and shook his head and said, "Whatever happened to my Transylvania twist? It's now the Monster Mash. It was the graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. It's now the Monster Mash. Now everything's cool. Drax brought the band, and my Monster Mash is the hit of the land. For you, the living, this mash was meant to. When you get to my door, tell them Boris sent you. Then you can Monster Mash and do my graveyard smash. You catch on in a flash, and then you can Monster Mash. Mash good. Igor, you impetuous young boy. Mash good. There's only one thing in this world that scares me. It's those creepy little dolls. They're everywhere. Those creepy little eyes and little bodies. They're coming for me. They're coming for me. Oh my, here they are. They're here. Those creepy little dolls. They've got me. They got me. Oh no.
Thank you, John and Steve. I got a shiver down my spine listening to that groovy music. They were hauntingly familiar. Say, drop us a chat if you know that song. Now, let's learn about the history and care of dolls from the History Center's collection manager, Kevin Whaley. Roll the film, Donnie.
Thank you, Wayne. So before we get into the cocktails and the dolls themselves, we probably should first speak a little bit about the history of dolls and why people think they're creepy. I know some of you out there might not be really thinking that dolls are that creepy or even that scary, but we first need to talk about that so you guys get a better idea of why the History Center is doing a program involving creepy dolls. But let's first start with the history of the dolls. So dolls are probably humans' oldest known playthings. There's some evidence that they might have existed in prehistoric times, although no prehistoric graves have been found with any dolls in them. That is because these dolls would have been made out of bone or wood and furs, and these all materials obviously all decompose over time. And so finding dolls from this era would be very difficult and almost impossible. But we have found dolls from ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt. Some of these date back to 2000 to 3000 BC. These dolls were also made out of wood, but in these cases, these environments are much drier and the wood's able to last much longer. Dolls were used not only for playthings for kids, but also would have been used in religious ceremonies and in festivals. As time moves on, in Europe, dolls were later used to show fashion. So one way that people could see the newest and latest, greatest fashion would be for the dolls to be wearing the latest, greatest fashion, and in that way they could remake that in their own clothes with kind of an already made example that's smaller and easier transported. But in the 1800s, you get the formation of porcelain dolls and ceramic dolls. And these are the really pretty ones most people recognize with the white faces and like the very realistic looking faces before the plastic dolls come around later in the century. Plastic dolls and animals, stuffed animal dolls, kind of become the main forms of dolls that we see nowadays, with Barbie and the PewDiePie dolls, and even teddy bears being a kind of form of a doll. So now that we know a little bit more about the history of the dolls, we kind of need to move into creepiness and scariness. And let's actually first take a step back and look at the difference between creepy and scary, because most people end up confusing those two terms between each other. They're very similar but slightly different. Scary is something that makes you respond in kind of a negative way, in a way that makes you frightened or afraid of it and wants to run away. That's when your fight and flight aspects kick in. Creepy, while similar, is actually slightly different. Creepiness is more the feeling of unknown and the feeling of kind of a mixed feeling of ambivalence and not understanding. So while it's very similar, it's slightly different. That's kind of an important distinction to make as we get into why dolls are creepy. So most of this information about why dolls are creepy actually comes from the Smithsonian magazine called The History of Creepy Dolls, an article that was in that magazine. And its big thing that focuses on for dolls is the fact that dolls are humanoid. Especially as you get into the 1800s and you get the really fancy and really lifelike dolls, those dolls are humanoid to the point where they look almost exactly like human, but they're slightly different. And so you understand that the doll is very beautiful and very pretty at that time period. And those dolls are what a lot of people think about when they think about beautiful dolls and how dolls are supposed to look and why people love dolls. But as time goes on, everything starts to deteriorate. And for those dolls, when their eyes start to deteriorate or their hair starts to fall out, they no longer look humanoid. And they look slightly off. And your brain knows not to be afraid of them, but your brain also isn't sure what they should be feeling. And so it gives you kind of an uncertain feeling, and that uncertain translates into creepy. And so that is why you find a doll creepy. It's because your brain's kind of stuck in this middle ground of not knowing whether or not it should be afraid, if it should like it, or what it should do. So it kind of defaults into these are creepy. So it's the fact that the dolls look very close to humanoid, but have that slight inconsistency that makes them creepy to humans. Here at the History Center, many of our dolls have started to turn to that creepy feeling, mostly just due to time. We at the History Center try to make sure our dolls stay wonderful looking and beautiful and pretty looking as long as possible, but over time, certain aspects do fail. In many cases with the dolls, it's the eyes that is one of the first things that fail. The eye color fades, the eye mechanism stops working, and so they no longer open or close. And that when the eye is left open or kind of empty socket, that you feel creepy because of that, because you're not sure, you know that something should be there and you're not kind of scared, but you're kind of creeped out and a little bit uncertain about that. So here at the History Center, we do try to make sure that doesn't happen as much. And one of the big ways to do that is actually by not using them very often. It keeps that mechanism from falling apart and keeps it well and solid. The other thing that is the hair starts falling apart. That is because most dolls, surprisingly, are made out of either human or animal hair. It's much more lifelike that way than if it was made out of like a plastic or a straw or something like that. And again, hair being a biological thing or a biological material will start to degrade on its own. So it's keeping it in better temperature conditions, keeping it in better humidity, and again, trying to keep out of light. Light's bad for most of the dolls. And that kind of brings up the next point, why you don't see a lot of the dolls for the History Center beyond the creepy doll time. It's really because we're trying to protect them and we're trying to keep them safe and in the back of the vaults, in their boxes, where they will be able to be preserved for future events. Due to the response of this creepy doll contest, we have tried to start bringing out dolls for more of our exhibits. We understand that people do love and enjoy seeing the dolls. So hopefully here in the future, you will be able to see more of our dolls at the History Center.
There's something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! There's something weird and it don't look good. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! I ain't afraid of no ghost. I ain't afraid of no ghost. If you're seeing things running through your head, who can you call? Ghostbusters! An invisible man sleeping in your bed, who can you call? Ghostbusters! I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Hey, thank you, fellas. Very good, very good. Hey, if you're like me, you may have been wondering what kind of cocktail would a creepy doll prefer? Well, let's find out from the History Center's very own mixologist and curator, Dan Nowakowski, and his able assistant, Darla. Set them up, Dan and Darla.
Hello there. I just had to take off my mask. So I will be making the cocktails for you, while my lovely assistant Darla will be reading about the history of the dolls to you. But first, we just got to remind you, please drink responsibly, and that the drink recipes we are using are from the book, The Art of Mixology, and the Ultimate Bar Book, The Comprehensive Guide to Over 1,000 Cocktails. Now, these are the recipes we're following, but all these cocktails have been changed, and you can use your own drinks for it or own alcohol that you prefer for it. So I'll shut up now and pass along to Darla so she can tell you about the dolls.
Thanks, Dan. Our first doll here is Arsenic and Old Lace. It's a boudoir doll that was a popular fashion trend from about 1915 to the 1940s. These dolls were decorative pieces for beds, sofas, and storefronts. They varied in different sizes and materials. Boudoir doll faces were stylized with the current makeup and fashion trend of the day. This doll is based on a gypsy design and used lead paint with makeup for her face. Her hair and eyelashes are real human hair treated with arsenic to keep them preserved. Her body is a soft cloth layout with exaggerated limbs. The clothing of the doll matches the makeup with the gypsy design. The dress features small rhinestones around the doll's neck. Back to you, Dan.
So for this cocktail, we are going to do the Goblet of Fire. Now, the Goblet of Fire calls for 1 part vodka, 1 part blue curacao, and 2 parts lemonade. And we are using this nice goblet-looking glass for that. So we'll start off with the vodka. I'm using Belvedere vodka, but you can use whatever favorite vodka you have. Okay, that's about 1 part. There you go. Then next we need the blue curacao. So this one has an orange flavor to it, but it turns the color very blue, which if you ever seen the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which this drink is based off of, it has a blue flame to it. And that's what this drink actually comes from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire movie. So after that, we add the lemonade, which is 2 parts. And to make it a little easier, I put it in a squeeze bottle. Okay, that's about enough for that. Then to really give the name, the Goblet of Fire, is we're putting a little bit of Everclear in. And you'll see why shortly. Now, you don't want too much. That should be enough. Got a little extra with the little splash there. Now, to give the name Fire, this one, we actually light this drink on fire. And and that's the Goblet of Fire. Now Darla will tell you about our next doll. Go ahead, Darla.
Thanks, Dan. This is Squeak. The doll is designed as a football player from 1910 through about 1930. He is made from rubber and features a squeaker on his back that is no longer operational. The doll would have been painted, but the paint is faded. What possible kind of cocktail reminds you of this doll's Squeak, Dan?
So this cocktail that I'm doing is the Moscow Mule. Now the Moscow Mule is a very hard to drink, so that's why we paired it with Squeaks, because he's a football player. Now there's many stories to the Moscow Mule, but we're going to go with the one story where in the 1940s this drink was created because vodka was not a popular alcohol for America to use. So to push the notion of vodka, a bartender who had a surplus of vodka and ginger beer decided to combine the two and add a splash of lime, and then use a copper mug, which we are using here. So I like to use a big ice ball for this drink to keep it really cold. So here we have the ice ball. And then we take our vodka again, and I like to make this a little more strong than some people, but a shot worth about is good. I'm doing a little extra here. Put the vodka in. Then you top it off with ginger beer. Now, I prefer the Trader Joe's version of ginger beer, but we are using the original recipe, which is cock and bull ginger beer. You just dump that in. And it fills up to the top. And once that's filled, you grab your lime wedge, which I already have pre-cut it already. And you just squirt that in. And then you drop it in. And just give that a little stir around. And then there's your ginger beer. Now, next to our third doll, which Darla will tell you the history behind.
This here is Stanley Kubrick. This is a favorite doll of mine, not because of its creepiness, but because of the related history to Olmsted County. Eva Beyer created this doll in 1973 as a gift from Mary Beyer. Eva was born in 1886 in Haverhill Township. She attended and graduated from Our Lady of Lourdes Academy in 1904. In 1913, she married William Patrick Lawler and relocated to the Lawler farm in Haverhill. The Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy dolls were created by John Gruel in 1915 and appeared in a series of children's books. The characters are rag dolls with red yarn hair and features a triangle nose. Dan?
So for this cocktail, we are actually doing a non-alcoholic one called the Arnold Palmer. And as you can see, I was just loading some ice in our highball glass. So this drink was made famous from the pro golfer Arnold Palmer. He loved his iced tea. And every time he drank it, he asked for a bit of lemonade to be put in. And the story behind how this drink became famous is Arnold Palmer was at a restaurant and he asked for his iced tea with a splash of lemonade. Well, another patron heard this and asked her waitress for the Arnold Palmer, and that's how this cocktail got its name. So for our recipe, we are doing 3 parts sweet tea, unsweet tea. And you're just going to squirt that in. And then we are going to top it off with some lemonade. And here we go. Then just to give that mix, we're going to grab our mix spoon, just give it a couple jabs in. And there you have it, the Arnold Palmer drink. And now we will pass it along to Wayne.
I like you, Dan. I've always liked you. You were always the best of them, Dan. The best dang bartender from the George Stoppel farmstead to the Ralph Stoppel farmstead. Well done, Dan. Well done. Say, why should these creepy dolls have all the fun? Humans can pretend to be creepy too. That's why we invited you to enter the Creepy Doll Costume Pageant. Let's roll the film of our fantastically scary costume contestants.
Welcome back. And before I start the next three cocktails, let's learn about the three creepy dolls that will inspire these three cocktails. So take it away, Darla.
Well, I kind of used to look like this next doll once upon a time. This is my old friend Bella Lugosi, and Edward Emerson Horseman Company created this doll. This doll is made using hard plastic but features movable arms, legs, and blue eyes. Included with this doll was an operating voice box that sounded like she was crying, but it no longer works. She is still in the original dress and bonnet. Dan, what drink goes along with her?
So we are going to create the Blood on the Tracks. This drink was inspired by the famous Bob Dylan song called Blood on the Tracks. Now this is a very simple drink. What you do first is get a highball glass, and you put ice in. There we go. Had some issues with the ice there. Then you take your Campari bitters. And I'm going to do about a shot's worth. This is actually a very simple cocktail. So once that's filled, you dump that in. And then the recipe calls for blood orange juice and sparkling water, but since we couldn't find any blood orange juice, I am subbing in blood orange soda. And you fill that up about a shot again. And that's it for the Blood on Tracks. That's the cocktail. And as you can see, it's very bloody. Now, back to Darla for our fifth doll.
Thanks, Dan. This is Frankenstein. It's another great Olmsted County doll. Frankenstein was originally Ella Hanson's doll. Ella was born in St. Paul in 1875. And at the age of 10, Ella and her family moved to Rochester, where she served as an assistant librarian, the Rochester Public Library, in the early 1900s. Ella married Oscar Hanson in 1907. Oscar was a prominent business owner who operated the Hanson hardware store in Rochester. This type of doll was produced by Müller Strasburger out of Germany. Müller and Strasburger were famous for producing papier-mâché dolls. This doll features a plaster head, neck with leather arms, and hands. This doll was made between 1863 and 1892. The original clothes have been lost and replaced. But speaking of libraries, you can find out about all kinds of creepy dolls at your local library. Just don't bring along a cocktail.
So this cocktail is actually very special. So this cocktail, you need a frozen glass, which I have here, and I have pre-poured the beer for it because it's called Black Velvet. Now this cocktail was inspired for Prince Albert after his death. It was created in 1861, and the English people were saying we can't mourn Prince Albert and drink champagne at the same time. So they decided to put it with stout. So we are using Guinness Stout, and we're using a Groot champagne. Now the trick for this one, you need a nice big spoon. Unfortunately, there's still a head on this one, so we'll see how it works. But you pour the champagne very, very slowly, and should show a little separation. Fortunately, we did not let the Guinness too much with the head, but eventually once the foam kicks away, you'll see a nice separation between the Guinness and the champagne, and it's actually a very tasty cocktail. Hopefully it'll settle by the time you come back for the third or the next cocktail. Now back to Darla.
Now this is Shirley Jackson, and not much is known about this doll, but it features an unknown face of a young woman silk-screened onto the head. Her hands are mitten-shaped, and her body and stuffing use natural cotton. The clothing is a red blouse and brown panelettes that feature a patch on her knee. Now back to you, Dan.
Okay. So the next cocktail is actually a very fun cocktail. It's called Voodoo, and it was inspired by the Jimi Hendrix song Voodoo Child's Slight Return. Now this drink is actually really cool because it uses 3 alcohols and milk. So what you do, you take your Kahlua and you dump it in. I'm doing about a shot's worth of Kahlua. And then you add your coconut rum. Now I have made this with a different rum and it changes the taste slightly, but I'm not a big fan of coconut rum, so You can use whatever rum you want. The recipe just calls for coconut. And then afterwards, you top it off with butterscotch schnapps. And if anyone has ever had butterscotch schnapps, it's very tasty and very good. Now I'm just pouring it in here, and then I'm going to add some ice cubes to here to get it nice and cold. And now I'm going to add the milk. I'm using Fairlife milk because that's what I enjoy. You just add that in, and you can do as much as you want. I'm probably doing about 2 shots worth of milk on that one. You can take your glass. Again, you fill that one up with ice. And before you pour, though, you want to stir, get everything mixed up. As you can see, the color has become a lot darker, and it is actually a very tasty drink. Then you just pour it in the glass. And add a trick to this one to give a nice little color. I'm just going to sprinkle some chocolate syrup on it. And there you go. That's your voodoo. And take it away, John.
A spell on you, 'cause you're mine. You better stop the things you do. I ain't lying. No, I ain't lying. You know I can't stand it. You're running around. You know better, mama. I just can't stand it. 'Cause you're putting me down. I put a spell on you. Because you're mine.
Hey, folks, wasn't that wonderful? Before we go on to our next segment, I want to make sure you're aware that you can get some terrific Creepy Doll merchandise. That's right, for your very own. We have these awesome coasters or terrific t-shirts. You can get these at our website, olmstedhistory.com, or go to Redbubble, search for us, and order to your heart's delight. It makes a great Christmas gift. All right, then. Now here's a behind-the-scenes look at local photographer Nate DeBoer's photo shoot of our 9 creepy dolls, plus his creepy sister.
You hear them calling, shouting your name. Turn up the collar and walk away. Feels like you're falling, now who is to blame? Wishing you'd only be more like them. Over and over, you cry yourself to sleep. And you're colder, much colder. If only you could see. Don't you know that you're beautiful, just the way you are, just the way you came. Don't you know that you're beautiful, no matter what the scars, no matter what they say. And we'll shout it out, louder, prouder. Ain't no one gonna hold us down, 'cause you know that we're beautiful, just the way we are. Don't let them sell you all of their dirt. It all will come back once the tables turn. Bolder, go bolder. Now set your sails on high. And you're stronger, much stronger than they will ever be. Don't you know that you're beautiful, just the way you are, just the way you came. Don't you know that you're beautiful, no matter what the scars, no matter what they say. And we'll shout it out, louder, prouder. Ain't no one gonna hold us down, 'cause you know that we're beautiful, just the way we are. Beautiful.
Here's another one.
Dan, I'm sure your next 3 cocktails for the last of the 3 dolls will be much better tasting than this elixir. Do not swallow. I'll save that for later.
So we're going to come back to the 3 cocktails, but first, let's learn the history behind the next 3 dolls. Take it away, Darla.
Thank you, Dan. The next doll is Victoria. I'm kind of partial to her. Maud Burbank received this doll as a young child in 1882. The original clothing has been lost but replaced by clothing refitted for the doll that once belonged to Maud when she was a baby. At an unknown time, Maud passed the doll to her older sister, Emma. On November 11, 1879, Emma married Albert Vine and moved to Viola. Albert became the sheriff of Olmsted County in 1898, and the family moved to Rochester. The doll stayed in the family and was passed to their son, Earl, who donated the doll to History Center of Olmsted County. And actually, just looking at this doll, I am finding some nails poking out of her head, and I'm finding that fairly creepy, Dan.
So to pair the cocktail for this doll, we decided to go with a drink called Death by the Afternoon. Now, this drink was created supposedly by Ernest Hemingway in the 1920s, and he used it actually as a pick-me-up. So this drink, it starts off with absinthe. Now, you might not be able to get some absinthe, so we did find that you could use pepperone as a substitute. So you start off with this drink as about an ounce worth. Now, absinthe, if you've never heard of it, is a very strong licorice-based alcohol that is very green, as you can see. You just put that in the glass, and then you take your champagne and you just pour it in. You can go as much champagne. I'm doing about another shot's worth, and you can see this pretty color, which goes along very well with the doll that is paired with this cocktail. Now back to Darla for our 8th doll.
Thanks, Dan. This is Lady Macbeth. The doll features a wax head and shoulders that are attached to a cloth body stuffed with sawdust. Her forearms and hands are leather stylized to look like evening gloves. The face has painted on features and rocking eyes made from glass that are colored brown. Her hair is brown human hair that's been woven together. She would have had human hair eyelashes too. The dress is styled from the 1860s fashion and is made from silk and includes her undergarments. She was once owned by S.F. Harris. What kind of drink goes along with that, Dan?
So as you can see with this doll, she's very 1860s kind of looking. So we decided to go with a very drink that kind of goes very well with her dress, and we decided on the mint julep for that one. Now this drink is actually my favorite drink because I am from the South, and mint juleps are known for being a Southern drink. So how you make it is you use I took about 5 mint leaves, and I'm actually going to slap it like that and dump them straight in. Then I'm going to take my muddler and just press it down some, just like this, to release that smell of the mint. And you want to use fresh mint for this. Now, any proper mint julep, you need a lot of ice. So I'm just going to scoop this ice in. And you want to fill it up as much as you can with ice. Okay. That's probably a good amount. So mint julep has the ice. We got the actual proper cup for it. Then you take your bourbon, and you can use any bourbon. I have a taste for the Maker's Mark, so that's what I'm using. And you do about an ounce worth, but I like mine a little stronger. So I'm just going to do a little more bourbon to that one. And then you add your straw. And to top it off, you put fresh mint in. You want to make the mint very prominent in it. Now you can, if the bourbon is a little strong, you can add a dash of water. Some history behind the mint julep is it was actually first recorded in 1770, but it can be traced back to the 1500s because julep was a term for medicine back in that time. But one of the big things I've found out was a African American named John Dabney was known throughout Richmond area as the best mint julep maker in Richmond and Washington, D.C. And he lived in the South during right after the Civil War. So it doesn't matter who you were, you wanted him to make you a mint julep. Now we'll learn about our last doll. Back to Darla.
Okay, Mrs. Danvers. This beautiful doll belonged to Aranetha Sharp Walton. It was donated to the History Center by her husband, Roy Walton. This doll features a tin head with brown rocker eyes and painted facial features. The hair is brown human hair woven into the wig. The body consists of stuffed fabrics and features porcelain for the forearms and hands. The dress is in 2 separate pieces in different shades of purple that features lace at the neck and forearms. Dan, what do we have for her?
So for this doll, we decided to go with a drink called the Purple Lady. Unfortunately, I could not find the history behind this drink, but it is a very unique drink. And you have to do proper measurements. Now, I found it only with milliliters, so I'll do my best to translate it to ounces for you. So to start off with the drink, you need gin. I'm using Aviation Gin. And I'm going to pour 50 milliliters. And any variation on this drink can screw it up. So I'm doing my best to follow the exact recipe. So that is about 2 ounces of gin. Dump it into your shaker. Then you add lemon juice. And you do about another 50 milliliters, which is about half a lemon. Okay, you got that in there. Then you take 10 milliliters of palm syrup, which unfortunately I forgot to grab, so I'm going to substitute simple syrup for that one. And you don't need much. You just want to make it enough to make it sweet. Okay. Then you do your 25 milliliters of pomegranate juice. Gotta find the right measurement for it. Okay, so that would be about 1 ounce of regular pomegranate juice, and you dump it in. Then here's the trick part, you add egg white. So I'm cheating using pre-egg white mix instead of cracking an egg. You don't need much. So I'm doing about 1 ounce of egg white. Dump that in. Then once that's all in, you get a ton of ice again. Well, first, before you add the ice, you actually shake it a few times just to get that milk or the egg white broken up a little, mixed with the drink or the liquids in there. You want to put as much ice in here as possible because this is a very cold drink and it helps with the egg white and the shaking process. So once you fill that up with ice, you shake. And once you think you have enough shake in it with it, grab a nice glass, and I coat it with some sugar to give a little sweetness to it. And you just pour it in. And like I said, the recipe I found was milliliters, so I tried my best to say what it is in ounces, but any slight changes to this will screw up the drink. So this is a very precise drink, and probably one of the hardest ones to make. But that's it for our cocktails. Now back to Wayne.
What a lovely drink, Dan. Nice job. Well, now that we have a few cocktails under our belts, it's time to reveal the winner of the Creepy Doll Costume Pageant. The winning contestant gets a fabulous custom t-shirt. Okay, John and Steve, are you ready to see which of the 21 contestants of the Creepy Doll Costume Pageant is the winner? Yeah, all right, yes. How about you out there? Are you ready? Yes, I know you are. Okay, the winner is Kristen. Kristen, all right. The one, the only. Listen, Kristen, I can honestly say that costume was seriously creepy. Congratulations, Kristen. And now, back to John and Steve. Well, Kristen, I'm sorry. The creepy dolls from our collections are serious divas and demand their stuff and demand to be declared a winner. So, Donnie, roll the film of this gruesome gang of creepiness. And the winner is, oh, Mrs. Danvers. Great ghosts. Good Lord, Mrs. Danvers, where did your hair go? Please, a little. Yes, here.
Oh, I'm
Somebody,
so
please.
embarrassed.
This is embarrassing.
I'm embarrassed.
Okay. Well, who would have thought it? A real Cinderella story from an alternate universe. Hey, let's go to the History Center's red carpet reporter, a lady who really knows the language of creepy doll stardom. Kathy Doll, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, dear Wayne. Oh, what an honor it is to live chat with our winner, Mrs. Danvers. Oh, darling, I really must say that you look ravishingly creepy tonight.
Oh, thank you.
How do you feel about being our winner?
Oh, I am so honored. This is the most exciting thing to happen to me in decades. I want to thank all my fans who voted for me, Dan, the curator, for taking such good care of me, and my photographer, Nate DeBoers, for helping me achieve the right balance between glamorous and creepy. I also want to thank the other doll contestants, except maybe that rag doll with the missing eye. I don't understand how he ever got into the same category as, but I digress. Being a museum artifact sounds glamorous, doesn't it, Kathy? Say it with me. Museum artifact.
Museum artifact.
Yes. However, spending decades in a box is extremely difficult, and I could not have done it without my artifact friends.
Well, Mrs. Danvers, you know, October has been a very busy month for you. You know, with the photo shoot and being on display all month long.
Oh, yes.
And, of course, the stressfulness of the voting outcome. What was your favorite part of it all, dear?
Well, I love being on full display for the first time. Every artifact's main job is to represent their piece of history. But it's hard to feel like you're contributing in a meaningful way when you're spending all of your time in a dark box. As a displayed museum artifact, I'm teaching people about the history of dolls. However, I have to admit, my favorite part was the photo shoot. I love playing pretend more than anything. I was created for playing with children and helping them develop an imaginary world. Posing for my Halloween creepy portrait was playtime for me and the most doll-like fun I've had in many, many years. I put a lot of effort, as you can tell, into creating the exact pose that would cause goosebumps, especially when my hair fell off. Did I give you goosebumps, Kathy? If I did, give me a little scream of delight.
Yes! Ooh.
Good job, Kathy.
Well, why, Mrs. Danvers, dear, do you think that your photo was the creepiest?
Well, my real human hair comes off, as we all know now. And I'm missing the back of my skull. If you stick your fingers inside the tin skull, you can move my eyes up and down. The tip of my nose is chipped, my right eyebrow is chipped, my lips are cracked. I was played with very vigorously.
Well, I do think that our viewers are probably interested in what it is like to live in an archival vault.
After I became an official part of the collection, I was given a special box with fancy paper to keep me comfortable. I spend most of my time concentrating on my beauty sleep. If you want to look this good after decades and decades, I highly recommend you spend a lot of time sleeping in a dark box away from the sun. As a matter of fact, Kathy, you look as though you've been spending a lot of time in the dark with that lovely complexion of yours.
Well, thank you, dear, but really, let's move on here. Now that you've won the 2020 Creepiest Doll title, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Oh, that's easy. I'm going to spend the next several years working hard on my creepy looks. Hours of beauty rest, of course, and the mannequins have promised to help me practice looking even more ominous. Sometime in the future, if there's a champion of Creepy Dolls contest, I'm determined to win again.
Thank you, Mrs. Danvers. And there you have it, folks. You heard it right from the winner ourselves. Now, back to you, Wayne, dear, for the wrap-up.
Wonderful job. Wonderful job. And how about that, Mrs. Danvers? Really, come from behind. I didn't think it would happen. Wow. What an exciting night. Say, folks, thank you for spending your Halloween evening with us here at the History Center of Olmsted County. Make sure you check out our website, olmstedhistory.com. Remember, buy that merchandise. It supports the museum, and it's a great gift for your parents. We can't wait to see you at our next event. Good night, everybody.